Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Holiday magic is in the air, and DSW's got all the shoes to make your season extra merry. Believe, you've got parties to attend and lists to check twice, so DSW is taking care of the details, like gifts to make their eyes all aglow, styles that bring joy to your world, brands everyone wants, like UGG, Nike, Birkenstock, and more, and deals to make your budget bright. Find the perfect shoes for you and yours at a DSW store near you or dsw.com.
Ready to pop the question? The jewelers at BlueNile.com have got sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds, and they're ready to ship to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code LISTEN to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code LISTEN at BlueNile.com for $50 off. BlueNile.com, code LISTEN.
This is Writers on Film, the only podcast dedicated to books on cinema. Hello everybody and welcome to Writers on Film. My name is John Bleasdale. I'm a writer and film critic, and the sound you can hear in the background is the sound of the 4,000 people who have been watching a film in the Piazza Maggiore at Bologna. It's beginning to disperse. This is one of the most entertaining film festivals I've been to. This is my first year in Bologna. Been invited here by the festival. Was very pleased to accept. Il Cinema Ritrovato is a festival dedicated to the restoration, screening of classic cinema, hidden films, lost films that have been refound, as the title suggests in Italian, ritrovato, refound films. They have shown seasons of Marlene Dietrich, seasons of Anatole Litvak, along with many others. There's a wonderful season of Pietro Germi films, an Italian director that I have been trying to champion on Cinema Italia, the sister podcast that I've been doing. Particular highlights this year for me, I say this year, again it's my first year here, but particular highlights of films I've seen so far are the brilliant George Stevens comedy Talk of the Town, which I hadn't even heard of, to tell you the truth. It's a Cary Grant comedy, sort of menage a trois. It's a little bit like a front page style, My Girl Friday, I should say, based on the play by called The Front Page. That was a Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon version, of course. It's a little bit like that film, except that Cary Grant is the man accused of murder, and he is an innocent man, and he has to hide out at the flat, the house of a girl who he was always in love with. But the tenant is a famous lawyer who is due to become a Supreme Court judge, and it's a sort of farce with incredible sort of resonance for today and the politics of today. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. Other films that I really enjoyed the Deliverance. I saw Deliverance on the big screen for the first time. This is a John Boorman thriller taking place in the Ozarks with Burt Reynolds and Jon Voight and Ned Beatty going down the river in canoes and meeting terrible fates at the hands of the sort of hillbilly rednecks that pursue them. I've always thought of this film as a sort of Peckinpah-esque tale, like a companion piece to Straw Dogs, where a middle-class liberal turns to violence and learns about violence after undergoing himself or witnessing violence himself. So, the law of the jungle survives. Death Wish is another film which follows this similar pattern. But this really is, I think, an anti version of that film. It's got the whole point of the film is that Jon Voight doesn't really overcome his fear of violence. He just sort of lucks out in the end. And if anything, everybody is just degraded by the violence. You can hear the music they're playing here. I better get out or the podcast will be banned for copyright reasons. But that's just ambient noise, so I can't be disqualified. Surely not. Another lesser-known film was a film by Haskell Wexler, a short documentary called The Bus. This documentary charts the progress of a bus of freedom riders all the way from San Francisco, all the way across the country in a huge diagonal multi-day journey to Washington, D.C. to participate in the famous march, which ended with Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous speech, I Have a Dream. This documentary should be much better known. It's about 40-50 minutes long. Obviously, it's filmed in the very early 60s. I think 62, 63 the march took place. Didn't come out for a year or so after that. It's filmed, of course, by Wexler himself and a couple of other cameramen he took along the way. Edited, interestingly, by Verna Fields, who then became the editor of George Lucas's early film, American Graffiti, and also Peter Bogdanovich's films, and famously saved Jaws, thus propelling her to the top of Universal, who sort of made her the in-house sort of editor for many of to give final cuts to many films in their output. It's an amazingly moving film. It's amazingly interesting. It shows a window into a more innocent time in which politics wasn't about compromising with the lesser evil, but was actually about genuinely hoping that things could change and we're on the way to a better world, and all we need to do is discuss these things and overcome them. And the songs that the participants in the march sing are just so inspiring. I had goose pimples all the way through watching this film. There's so many moments to really treasure. It's a real gem of a movie, and it really ought to be, as I say, better known. It's one of the documentaries that just lives up to the project that it's trying to do. It lives up to its own historical moment. And so that was an amazing highlight. Other highlights, it was kind of predictable that I should love McCabe and Mrs. Miller, which is one of my favourite films ever. But seeing it on the big screen with Leonard Cohen's music, wonderful cinematography by Zygmunt. Wait a second, what's his name? Vilmos Zsigmond, I think. Famous. You'll be laughing at me now for not getting it, but I have to tell you, it's midnight as I walk through the streets of Bologna trying to get all of this right. What I'm going to do anyway is give the opportunity of you guys to hear the opinions of some people who are much better prepared, much better qualified than I am to speak about the festival. I have the co-director of the festival, Ehsan Ehsan KhoshBakht. He's going to talk about the festival more generally, and we had a really good chat, so I hope you enjoy that. The second conversation is with MIchael Dawson, who is does something which is at the very heart of the festival, which is he restores films, and his big 2 restoration projects are the works of Stanley Kubrick, and he was here specifically to show the early shorts of Stanley Kubrick, the Day of the Fight, the Flying Padre, and the Sea Workers Union. All of which are really interesting from the point of view of seeing an embryonic Kubrick, and when we talk about that as well. So without further ado, I'll hand over to those guys, and I hope you enjoy.
Kiev-born Russian Jewish filmmaker who made films in Britain, France, Germany, and Hollywood, shows an incredible degree of understanding about not only his time, but the time that we are living in, especially in response to wars and conflicts and revolutions. So a fresh discovery for many people. I believe this is the first time a festival has put together a tribute to his cinema. But then there are other directors from Japan, from Sweden, Parajanov also, a rare selection of his films. There are films dedicated to the early days of cinema, the year 1904, films from 100 years ago. But if I want to highlight 2 major discoveries and 2 totally new titles for the audience, I can name The Sealed Soil. It's a film from 1977, one of the very few films directed by a woman in the history of Iranian cinema, which we played a couple of days ago. It's a new restoration of a film which was unavailable basically since the Iranian Revolution. And the other film is a West German film called I'm an Elephant, Madam, by Peter Sadek. His debut feature about the student revolution in West Germany has Velvet Underground on the soundtrack. It's a film that was not shown for a long, long time, even though the director Peter Sadek is known, especially in Britain, for his revolutionary theatre work. So it's a wonderful opportunity to see a restored version of his film.
I love the fact that this festival feels so contemporary with the issues and the films that it brings up. I watched Talk of the Town by George Stevens yesterday, and the resonance with today's political scene was great.
I think it's the characteristic of great art. So I cannot pretend that every choice we have made in terms of the selection of the film is based on reacting or responding to what's happening in the world now. But these films contain all these sensibilities, so they do it in their own way. And when you play it, if you have programmed it for an entirely different set of reasons, when you play it, all of a sudden it becomes something else. It finds new meaning in the eye of the audience, and it, in a way, it is born again in the projection booth and in the cinema in front of everybody.
I emailed George Stevens Jr., his son, last night to tell him I just watched the film, and he came back how delighted he was that the cinema had been full and everyone had been laughing.
I did a retrospective on George Stevens here 3 years ago, and I think perhaps that was one of my absolute favorite retrospectives here because of the personal and emotional relationship that I developed with his films. And this film in particular was a major highlight. Again, Stevens is someone very similar to the director I named earlier, Anatol Litvak, because they were both involved in active combat during the Second World War, and they were both making documentaries for the US Armed Forces during the war. And they were both deeply affected by the experience of the war. George Stevens, the liberation of Dachau, the famous color footage that he shot on his personal camera. Litvak, who was Jewish, for him, perhaps it was even more impactful and more life-changing. So you see the change of style, view on the world in their post-war films. So I would like to compare the two of them, and I think I mentioned this to the audience that they should look at these retrospectives of American masters, in quotation marks, as the continuation of each other, expanding on certain themes and certain approach to filmmaking in American cinema.
One of the more visible parts of the festival is the screenings in the Piazza Maggiore. Yesterday I went to see The Conversation, and again the resonance with contemporary issues is all too evident.
Again, a case of fantastic coincidence, because surveillance is an issue, a major contemporary issue for all of us. You're recording this conversation on a mobile phone, and this mobile phone can contain tools and softwares of surveillance. So we are carrying with ourselves devices all the time that can monitor, record, and report our activities. So it's far more contemporary than the time of Gene Hackman and Francis Ford Coppola in 1974. I think what happens in a place like Piazza Maggiore is that it intensifies the experience of viewing that film. There is something, it's like every emotion, instead of being released in the air, hits the person sitting next to you, comes back to you multiplied, and it becomes a magnetic field of this. You could feel this energy, and for that reason,
explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
The meaning of each film played there can influence people or reach people, that meaning, far faster than any other venue that I can think of. It's just, again, it's a simple rule. Films were made for people, they were viewed by people in groups, and the higher the number, it seems that the bigger the impact.
I also wanted to ask how this festival relates to the work that you do in Bologna, in terms of the restoration, in terms of I've seen the Cineteca Bologna on so many DVDs and so many film prints when I've seen them in other places. What is the relationship between those two things? The film restoration lab in Bologna, Bologna Ritrovato, which has been part of Cineteca di Bologna, is responsible for a good number of restorations, not only this year's festival, but also previous editions and beyond. So it's, in a way, the showcase of the great work they've been doing, and there are examples like Napoleon, work in progress, restoration of of the most complete version of the film by Abel Gance. So I would say that again there is a sort of collaboration between the lab and the festival. There are certain films that we want to show, but they're very difficult to screen because of the conditions, and it happens that the lab
comes forward and takes the initiative to take care of it. And then there are also films that are restored in the lab, and you look at the list and say, we have to show this film because it's such a wonderful film. So it is a very unique opportunity to have the lab, the archive, and the festival existing in the same place under the same umbrella. And probably because of that, it makes this experience very unique in terms of the access to films and the quality of the projections and the material you have to show to people.
Excellent. And finally, what is the future for the festival? How do you see it going? Are you on path for expansion, or are you logistically at the size that you want to be? Do you have any ambitions for where you want to go in future editions?
I think this is a question that needs to be answered by Cineteca di Bologna in terms of the way they see the expansion of the festival and the activities in the future. But I would say, Bologna, the old section of Bologna, the city center is not that large, and there are not that many venues. So I think by now we have reached the right size in terms of the number of venues we need, the type of venues we need, the range of activities. So this should be like the size that we have dreamed about for years, because this year, for the first time, a very old cinema from 1910s, Cinema Modernissimo, it was renovated by Cineteca di Bologna. It has been added to the lineup of the festival as part of one of the regular venues of the festival, and that has helped a lot. We've been waiting for this for 5-6 years, and with that now fully operating, I guess it's for the future. It's just a question of fine-tuning the programming and making the experience more enjoyable for the audience.
And it seems more necessary as well. We were talking before we started recording this about people having to sort of learn the theatrical experience again, and sort of experience it almost as a rediscovery these days.
It's true, but John, what is so incredible is that even with the younger audience, it's not like, oh, you have to behave like this. This is a cinema. This is not streaming. They already knew it by default. It seems that they were just waiting for this moment. They are so ready for it. And that's the most incredible part. They were just waiting for the opportunity to show that they care. They can stay in the cinema and they can go and watch film after film after film and discuss these films with friends. And so, in a way, I guess the key question is, not for this festival, for the entire film community and film culture around the world, that how can we provide our audience, especially the younger ones, with places like this, that they can trust the programming, that they can trust the quality of the projection, and then immersing themselves in the experience.
Thank you so much, Ehsan. That's absolutely brilliant to talk to you. And thanks for such a great experience at the festival.
Thank you very much, John.
Okay, that's super. we've just seen, which is the restorations of the Stanley Kubrick shorts, three of them, the first three shorts. And you told us before the film that this was like a two-phase restoration.
Yes.
So maybe you want to just talk a little bit about that for me.
The reason we did it in two phases was I knew, based on doing beta testing, the RS2 system was actually developed in Singapore. The University of Singapore did the research and development on it, and the funding was done by the government of Singapore. And so we had done some restoration on Othello some time before, and we used the discrete logic system. Now the problem with that is it's all manual. So if you've got, let's say, some base abrasions or some emulsion chipping, and let's say you have only 3 of those per frame, at 24 frames per second, you can see how it becomes economically, almost logistically infeasible. So what happened was this system, by picking up if it didn't last long, in terms of frameage, it would remove it. So there was a number of beta testing adjustments that had to be done, and so we were allowed to use the system for free in exchange for our input on how to make modifications to improve it.
So you were like kind of a test run.
Yeah.
Right.
So and what it did essentially was it took digital restoration from the horse and buggy to the automobile.
Amazing.
So, and 24 hours later it's done, but you've got to go in and get what it didn't remove. So, but you got to be careful, and so that was one issue. And we cut our teeth doing B films, monster movies, drive-in fare, Attack of the Giant Gila Monster, Wasp Woman. I mean, you name it, we did it. And
so you did that almost like to practice with.
Well, yeah, almost, yeah. So, which helped us when we got to the Seafarers, because that's a 16 millimeter print. Not working with a negative, or at least an interpositive, or a Duke neg. I don't care how many generations it's, down from the original camera neg, but the bottom line is it's the point of departure, which is why I sought this Harry Saltzman master negative for Orson Welles' Chimes at Midnight. I knew it was the best existing element. And it was a reverse negative, contact negative, made off the original camera negative, which is apparently got issues.
Okay.
And so Saltzman made that as a contact element because he was distributing throughout the world. It took me a while to locate it, and then it took me a while to clear the legal on it. So,
Right.
So.
Do you mentioned during your introduction as well that you're preparing a video essay on the sort of the embryonic Kubrick, as you mentioned.
Right.
And watching the films, I was seeing a lot of things. I was saying, there's a camera where the angle is very low, up towards someone. Even the fact that
you remember the shot of Sterling Hayden in Dr. Strangelove?
Precisely, yeah. Or Jack Torrance in The Shining, tapping on the door.
Oh, absolutely. And so what we want to do is create kind of a visual essay where you basically have a scene, you freeze it, and then you put up the different titles showing the same type of camera movement, topic per se, or shot composition, and then from as many films as you can, obviously, and then so you got to be choosy about what you pick, because you want to make sure that the representations you're trying to espouse, in terms of embryonic beginnings, can be well detailed in his later films. So that's kind of what we're working on now. I wanted to get it done for this festival, but I've got other productions. In fact, I'm exhausted. I've got 3 productions going on, and it's people won't do anything unless I approve it. So I've got to be on the phone after my screenings.
How important is a festival like this, like Bologna, to this kind of restoration work?
Well, I think it's. I'm extremely impressed with it. I think philosophically they've nailed it in that regard, and also you're bringing back old films in great condition that you think it's a memory, and you forget there's actual scenes that you forgot about. I noticed that in Sugarland Express with Goldie Hawn. It was like, wow, I barely remembered that movie. I remembered it, but I didn't remember it. So I think on that level as well, the festival is quite beneficial.
I think also watching the shorts, there's a sense of you're watching real people, you're watching people in situations, you're looking at faces and body types that maybe we don't see as much anymore.
There's a theory that the best filmmakers come out of a documentary background. because of the dynamic of how they're covering a subject. It's a reality situation, so that when they're dealing with actors, there's a crossover in terms of technique and how they can interact and so on. So,
although a day of the fight, I was sort of spotting quite a lot of sort of reenactment during that.
Well, that's true. That's true. And of course, there's that famous fight sequence with Ryan O'Neal and Barry Lyndon, which will be one of the examples. Both in terms of composition and camera movement. But yeah, I mean it is what it is. There's actually, I think, in one of the stills that's covered in the Look magazine article on the Cartier, you can see Kubrick sitting in the front row.
Right.
Yeah, with his with a camera. So, anyways.
And so you mentioned other projects. What's the next thing that's going to cause you the headache?
I'm doing a 4-part series on Orson Welles. I began it as a 90-minute documentary, and I finally decided that it was going to be my swan song, just because there was just too much material there. The joke was, would the documentary be completed by the end of the 20th century? Then the new joke was, will it be completed by the end of the 21st century? But then we decided, no, wait a minute, let's do a 4-part. And it's called Citizen Welles Act 1, Cradle to Cane. Act 2, Citizen Welles Act 2, Despite the System. Citizen Welles Act 3, This Side of the Wind, as an homage to the other side of the wind. And then Citizen Welles Epilogue, which is everything that's happened since he's passed away, in terms of restorations and festivals and recognition that he didn't go downhill after Citizen Kane. He just continually made masterpieces, maybe under more difficult circumstances, but still, great work. A great body of work.
Absolutely.
And this idea of him not completing projects, every filmmaker has that. Kubrick had films he didn't complete. The difference with Welles was he would actually start shooting footage. So his incomplete films are more complete than everybody else's. Everybody else, it's a script and a file cabinet, whereas he's got exposed footage. So it's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, he wanted to just start.
And when you compare him to Kubrick, when you think of it, I mean, they both died at the same age. They both had 3 wives. They both had 3 daughters. Made the same number of films.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's absolutely true.
So, and no one complains about Kubrick not finishing Napoleon.
No, absolutely not. Especially because it gave us Barry Lyndon.
But he wanted to do Napoleon. He really did.
Sure.
So I hear Spielberg might do it as a series.
As an Apple series, I think.
Yes. So we'll see what happens. Of course, Ridley Scott just did it, and there's always this, there's already been, And I think that was the problem with when he first started wanting to do Napoleon, was because it was, the Rod Steiger, Waterloo film. So,
which I think is magnificent as well.
Yeah,
but commercially not successful.
Yeah, and it's like Platoon versus Full Metal Jacket. There's this idea that, if you're covering the same subject matter, the market can't handle it, and I think that's just bonkers. But that's studio thinking. So.
Thank you so much for talking to me, Michael.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to further communication.
Brilliant. That's perfect. I'll compile.
$1-800-Flowers.com knows that a gift is never just a gift. A gift is an expression of everything you feel and helps build more meaningful relationships. 1-800-Flowers takes the pressure off by helping you navigate life's important moments by making it simple to find the perfect gift. From flowers and cookies to cake and chocolate, 1-800-Flowers helps guide you in finding the right gift to say how you feel. To learn more, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.
Cue the fireplace and your favorite fall movie. There's nothing better than a cozy evening at home with a glass of First Leaf wine. First Leaf is a personalized wine club that delivers right to your door. Sounds magical, right? They get to know your favorite tasting notes, which varietals you enjoy, and whether you prefer sweet or dry wines. So in every shipment, you get bottles tailored to your unique palate. Go to tryfirstleaf.com/fall to get your first 6 wines for just $44.95 with free shipping.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.